I would just point to the obvious. How many examples in so many different fields of goals, whether it's fitness or athletics or education or career or otherwise, where, someone can struggle and fail many times, but eventually succeed. A lot of times I hear that when I talk to people and they're like, I'm just scared I'm going to fail again. And I'll say, hey, they usually have kids. I'm like, let's say you're talking to your son and their son wants to learn basketball. And he goes, Dad, I've tried to dribble and it keeps hitting my foot and I just can't. And every time I shoot the ball, it doesn't go far enough. Like, I quit. What would you tell him, right? You would say, dude, keep trying, man. Stop. Like, just because you failed a bunch of times doesn't mean you're never going to do it again. Like, when you watched your kid trying to learn how to walk, how many times did they fall? Did they ever have the attitude, or I'm just going to quit and lay on the ground?
This is Blue Leader Nation. Blue Leader Nation. We're here to develop those men and women in law enforcement who want to be respected leaders and to mold you into becoming a legendary leader. If it's leadership, personal growth, and self-development, we're talking about it. Whether you're new or a veteran, you've found your new home. This is the Blue Leader Nation. Now, here's your host, Dr. Ed Pallas.
Hello and welcome back to the Blue Leader Nation podcast. I'm your host, Ed Pallas, and today we're talking about something that every leader in public safety knows is important, and it's an important issue, but all too often we wait until it becomes a problem. And so today we're going to talk about health, fitness, energy, and long-term readiness. My guest today is Ted Stern, co-founder of FitResponder, a coaching program built specifically for first responders and their families. Ted, welcome to the show, my brother.
That was a stellar intro, man. Thank you. Yep, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to the chat. Let's do it.
All right, awesome. All right, so you were a first responder, and it's interesting. We talked a little bit before we hit record that's how you met your spouse. That's how I met my spouse. And you're the owner of FitResponder. And I want to get to the business, but first, I want to get a little bit about your origin story. Tell us about your journey. How did it lead you to this point where we are now?
Man, okay. So when I was born, no, I'm just kidding. Let's recap the last 38 years. The relevant stuff, got into law enforcement because I saw some cops handling business one day and I was like, that looks cool. And I loved watching the show Cops. And anytime you see them getting busy and, I was like, man, that looks like fun. And my dad was like, you sound crazy. And my dad didn't want me to do it. Anyways, so I got into law enforcement with my local agency, applied to a few, but they took me in Ventura County in Southern California. That's kind of near Los Angeles, and loved my job. And then let's see, how many years was I in? About 5 years in, I met my wife, who, just became my girlfriend at that time. And I was trying to be like a power lifter, right? Real strong. And I didn't care how fat I got in the process. So I was eating and eating and eating. And yes, I was strong, but I got up to 260 pounds. And I remember one day a nurse at the jail where I was working was like, let me check your blood pressure. Just, I don't know why, but she probably knew I had high blood pressure. And it was 160 over like 100 something. And she's like, that's really scary.
Yeah.
And that was my wake up call because I was only 24. And I'm like, this is crazy. Why do I have high blood pressure? And other things were pointing signs to me that there are signs pointing to the fact that I should lean out. And I struggled, I struggled to lose the weight, struggled to stay consistent. And so my wife, who's my girlfriend at the time, started giving me some tips because she was in great shape. Thankfully, I listened to her, and with her help, and actually I had a couple fitness coaches I went through at the time who I worked with, I got in great shape, and it was really awesome to figure it out, right, after so much struggle. So I started sharing my journey with people. I did already have a background as a personal trainer. That's what I did here and there before law enforcement, part-time. So it was a good fit because people saw I got fit and were like, how'd you do it, Ted? So long story short, my wife and I started to coach people, and we transformed a lot of bodies within our department, and word started to spread. And, people were doing online coaching, right? I'm like, well, why not? Let's try that. Long story short, it exploded. Like FitResponder exploded in popularity. And I mean, soon enough, after some time, I was so busy with FitResponder and making more money than I was as a cop. And I loved it. I mean, it was something I was super passionate about. One thing that's nice about being a fitness coach compared to being a cop is that all of your customers like you. Right? Like everybody I worked with was happy to work with me, right? As opposed to being a cop, of course. So, it was a tough decision, but I willfully left the career to just say, I'm going to try going full time with FitResponder. Let's see what happens. No regrets on that. It's been a wonderful change. I miss being a cop sometimes, but I was able to retire, both my wife and I. And, there's more freedom, more time flexibility. It's a fulfilling passion that I'm doing right now. So no complaints for sure.
Nice. I love it. That took some guts to jump from a very stable but maybe lower paying job into the entrepreneurial track.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Edward. So one of my buddies, I remember saying that. I was like, I'm scared, dude, because of the job security. And he was like, what job security, dude? You could get killed on the job tomorrow. You could get permanently disabled on the job tomorrow. He goes, as long as your brain and your mouth works, you'll be able to be a fitness coach. And I was like, wow, that's a really good point. So that changed my mind on that job security aspect.
So in your experience, what actually keeps first responders stuck when it comes to health and fitness?
All I can say is their approach in general, because everybody seems to have their issues, right? Whether it's like what causes them to derail from their nutrition plan, what causes them to be inconsistent with their training, whether it's injuries or the schedule or whatever else. But it seems like everybody allows, frankly, these things to get in the way. And a lot of them just don't know any better, So like, one of the things I love about being a fitness coach is showing people how to make it easier, how to make it doable. But, I would just say it's a lot of just misinformed opinions like, hey, well, I'm eating healthy, yet they're still eating too many calories, or they're right. I mean, or, oh, it wasn't that bad. It was a salad. And they don't realize how many calories are in the salad. Or, oh, I kicked my butt doing this workout, but it wasn't the most efficient structure of exercises. So they're putting in effort, but not getting results. And I mean, there's so many variables. It's really hard to pinpoint the one thing, but I think for first responders, just the stress of the job, the sedentary nature of the job being most of the time, right? And, the schedule, the long hours, the crazy shift work, trying to juggle that with family life. I think a lot of first responders just put fitness on the back burner because they're just handling everything else. And then until that one day they go, shoot, I've just let this go too far. I need to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So your wife's name is Emily, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. How you were both first responders, and unless you're a first responder, you can't really understand the shift work, the poor sleep, stress, the public safety culture really shapes our lifestyle. How did that help you build that knowledge, that you had firsthand? How did that help you build this program?
It was huge. One of my inspirations for starting FitResponder was a bad fitness coach that I had, meaning I had just started on patrol and I'm very much into fitness. So I've had many fitness coaches over the years just to learn, just to get, some extra accountability and whatnot. And I remember I had this one coach who had me on this kind of like meal protocol that was really challenging. It was like I had to eat every 2 hours. My watch alarm would beep and I would eat, plain turkey and broccoli. And it was just like, it was tough. And I remember I was on like a traffic collision for half the shift directing traffic. And I told my coach, I said, hey man, like, I wasn't able to eat, meal 3 and 4, and I'm probably going to miss the workout today. And he said, oh, looks like you don't want this bad enough. That's how he replied. And I remember just thinking, if this dummy just understood or even tried to understand what my profession entails and how, maybe he needs to come up with something more flexible for me. Maybe he could really help me, but instead he's just discouraging me. And that was kind of the spark in a way that made me go, man, I could be a way better coach than this guy for first responders. Like first responders need that compassion and understanding, when the life and the career just gets in the way. And I find they're very appreciative when I'm like, hey, no worries. Here's what we're going to do next time, or here's the better approach if their career gets in the way. So just living the different assignments I've had, I've been on a night shift for basically a year straight. I've done detectives where I'm sitting at a desk. I've done a 9 to 5 spot. I've done many 16-hour shifts and everything in between. So I feel like I had a really good background to be able to kind of empathize and understand with my clients. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it sounds just like it. We talk a lot about leadership, and a lot of the reasons that I hear for people taking a promotion exam is because they work for a bad boss. And so they want to do better. And it sounds like it's very similar. You had a bad fitness coach and you're like, I can do it better. So it's just an interesting parallel.
Yep.
All right. So when a first responder joins FitResponder, what are the first few things that you assess before you build a plan out for somebody?
Yeah. So, I think a good conversation is important, right? So like before people sign up, either myself or someone on my team will do what's called a consultation call, and we'll discuss, hey, what are your goals exactly? What are you struggling with? What does your life look like? And that can kind of help us figure out where are the priorities, right? So like, for example, I signed up 2 clients in the last 2 days, and one of them was already a very motivated athlete who was just trying to like excel and just, really exemplify his total potential, where the other was so poor in terms of his habits and struggling and very much overweight. So like I'm going to treat those clients different, right? Like one of them, the guy who's really just trying to edge out his excellence, we're going to start at a higher level, and he already has a better like background and knowledge. And then, for example, like I've had some clients where I'm like, hey, your only task for this week is just to avoid the 2 liter of Coke that you claim you must have every day. Or like, I just want you to go on a walk. Let's do that. Let's say for someone with like, some extreme obesity and just zero effort so far over the last however many years. Right. So I hope that answers the question, but like, it takes understanding the individual, what their specific goals and challenges are, and then kind of crafting a plan that just meets them where they're at and gives them that level of challenge that's just right above kind of where they're at, so that they can be challenged but not feel discouraged, right? And just have the appropriate level of challenge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about small wins, and those small wins build up to then be eventually big wins. It's funny you mentioned the 2 liter of Diet Coke. What are some of the biggest mistakes first responders make with nutrition? I mean, when schedules are chaotic and 7-Eleven or Wawa is always calling your name. What are those mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, one of the mistakes is depending on eating out and fast food too much, because those people don't care about your fitness and health, macros and calories. In fact, much of the food that is for sale out there that's already packaged, pre-made, cooked for you, it's designed with intent for it to be hyper palatable and enjoyable and addicting while you're eating it. But obviously that's not in your best interest for your health and well-being. So yeah, depending on, to go fast food is a problem. I do like to give my clients fast food options, right? Like, hey, if you have to go to Taco Bell, here's some of the better options there, right? If you got to go to McDonald's, fine, here's some better options. I want them to feel like they can enjoy themselves and have some wiggle room, but not feel like they're being a loser, right? And falling off plan. So I mean, yeah, with nutrition specifically, I think eating out is tough. And then it's also inconsistency. A lot of what I hear from my clients is like, man, I just kind of eat when I can. I don't even know when I'm going to eat. Sometimes I don't eat all day. And then I just go home and I rage on food because I'm just out of control hungry. And then, a lot of people underestimate how much they're eating and what they're eating, right? They're like, hey, look at this healthy meal I ate, Ted. It's chicken and rice. And I look at it and it's Panda Express orange chicken, and it's, a 2,500 calorie meal. I'm like, hey, I know you think that's chicken and rice, but that's not chicken and rice, really. Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of hard to pinpoint the exact problem, but those are some of the more common issues that I see.
So it's funny. I've always thought that and I haven't eaten at either one of those establishments in years, but I remember when I did, I always felt like I just rented the food. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of didn't stick with you for very long anyway.
No, it's true. And like what basically universally, what everybody says when they get started in the program, they start eating better. They're like, man, I didn't even realize how good I can feel. Like I feel so good. My energy feels good. Like I have more mental clarity. Like literally, so like fitness and health is the lowest hanging fruit to improve your life, and by far. I mean, there's other things that could be good. We argue, right? Relationships, spirituality, blah blah blah. But making sure your fitness and health is on point opens up a lot of doors. So yeah, when to your point, when a lot of times too, when clients will be like, you know what, I'm going to have a cheat meal. Like I'm just going to go get McDonald's. I'm like, sure, dude, go. You're allowed to. We call them freedom meals on our program because I don't consider it cheating. I think we should be free sometimes to eat whatever the heck we want. And they'll come back and be like, dude, I feel so sick. I feel like I just ate a bunch of bricks. This food didn't affect me this way before. And I'll let them know, hey, your gut was accustomed to that. The body is very adaptable and resilient and can get used to processing junk. But once you get it more accustomed to good quality fuel, once you go back to that junk, yeah, it can sit in your stomach like a ton of bricks and make you feel terrible. And it really does open your eyes to how important good quality food is.
So here's a question for you. I retired at the end of last year, end of 2025, but I'm still out on the road. I teach for FBI Lead. I'm out on the road all the time, talking to people. And across the country, public safety is hurting. Almost every agency, more than 10 or 12 people are down many, many bodies, sometimes 10, 20% of the workforce. So I often get conversation about lowering standards or not holding people to standards. So, since we're talking about physical fitness and health, that often comes up a lot. Have we normalized being unhealthy in public safety, do you think?
Yeah, totally. As a culture as well, as a society as well, there's times where I would, let's say bulk up and then I cut down to like 210 pounds at 6'2", and people would be like, man, you're getting so skinny. And what's funny is like 100 years ago, a guy that was 6'2", 210 would be a monster. Like my dad was, my biological dad was born in 1921. He's dead now. But he would tell me that on his college football team that like the big guys are like 6'1", 190, 200, right? So like I talk to guys who weigh 250 and they think they would be quote unquote emaciated if they lost 30 pounds. But I mean, yeah, speaking of standards in law enforcement, it is awful. I've seen the statistics, 70% of first responders are overweight / obese. One of the most, let's see. So first responders are some of the most obese groups of professions in America. And it's not like the career attracts obese people. What it does is it creates them because of the difficulty of the job, and people don't know how to manage their fitness and health with those challenges. But yeah, I mean, it is pathetic how low, in my opinion, how low the standards have come. The physical fitness tests are a joke. Because let's imagine if we really tested people for what they may and should be able to do. Like, no, not a 160-pound dummy, a 240-pound dummy, because probably a lot of your partners with full kit are going to weigh that. So go ahead and move it, right? Not a 2-foot wall to hop over. Like, let's do a 6-foot wall. And here's the thing: if you can't physically perform that, let's offer positions in law enforcement that aren't field ready, where you can do stuff. You can work in the jails and you can do things that aren't requiring that. But if you're a patrol officer, in my ideal world, which probably never will happen, they would be basically athletes, like excellent, fit. You'll get me on a tangent, but in my ideal world, that we should pay them a lot of money and make it one of those professions that are highly sought after by excellent people, like highly intelligent people, very fit people, very serious people. And like, imagine a world where we paid officers $200,000 a year, right? And you had to go through 3 years of law enforcement education, academy, schooling to do it. You would have people who would do it. And what would you get? You would get way better cops. You would get way less incidences of excessive force and people screwing up on the job. I'm just dreaming of an ideal world that probably never will be. But yeah, I mean, long story short, to answer your question, the fitness standards now in law enforcement are atrocious, and I'm disgusted by it constantly.
Yeah, and even, you mentioned jails and corrections. I work with a lot of corrections officers and deputies who are jailers. And I would even think that, patrol officer certainly needs to be fit, but in the jails, when it might be just you and 1 or 2 or 3 or a group of prisoners for who knows how many minutes till somebody comes. Equally, if not more important, being fit. So it really applies to all of us. Give or take, there's about 850,000, law enforcement officers, state, local, and federal across the country. And so I know you'd have support of all those for that $200,000 a year job. They might balk at the 3 years of training, but I think we could do it.
Well, and the way I think about it is like how many years does a surgeon have to do before they can perform a surgery, right? Isn't it like 8 years of education?
Yeah, something like that, yes.
Okay, and then when they do a surgery, they have time. They have people around them that can tell them what to do. They could, before they do the surgery, they could, check their notes and refresh how to do it. Law enforcement officers are tasked with oftentimes highly complex, rapidly evolving scenarios that are dangerous, where there's way more pressure, and you're going to send them to that to basically perform something that could be as challenging as a surgery, depending on the dynamics of the situation, right? And your head spinning after what? Like some marching and I'm dumbing it down. Some academies are better than others, but let's be real. To tell you the truth, when I graduated, I supposedly came from one of the best academies in the country. At least we would tout ourselves as that. They'd say this is one of the finest training centers and they did put in effort, but still I felt inadequately prepared to be a street level cop when I came out. Even though I performed well, my FTO said, good job, you're great, all this stuff, whatever. I'm like, this is crazy. The amount of things that you might be called to do and have to do in this job. So I would argue, yeah, we should get paid $200,000 a year, require years of education. And we should have, because it's an extremely important job, right? It's extremely important. Imagine if we had like very intelligent, super fit, super competent cops work in the streets. That could make a big difference in our world, right? But now what do we have? We have out of shape cops. We have departments that are discouraging them from being proactive. We have people who are undertrained, understaffed. Law enforcement is a mess right now.
All right. So I'm going to jump in with another question. So we were talking about training academies, and I was at our training academy for a number of years. And I think most entry-level training is actually pretty good, especially the physical fitness side. We're starting to see a lot more CrossFit style training. My family's into CrossFit. So, first rule of CrossFit is you got to talk about CrossFit so I can check the box for this episode. So, but we're seeing a lot more of that style training. And I also saw people graduating. Ours was 6 months in the best shape that they've been in their lives. So we're sending them out. I think for the most part, there's some exceptions, exceptionally well-trained and physically fit. But then, as we talked about earlier in the episode, the job it makes it very difficult to stay that way. So what do you say to the first responder? Because you've trained thousands of people. You and your team have trained thousands of people. You're very good at this. What do you say to the first responder who's tried different stuff before, failed before, and now believes, you know what, I'm just not built for this?
Yeah, well, that's definitely a quitter attitude. I would just point to the obvious. How many examples in so many different fields of goals, whether it's fitness or athletics or education or career or otherwise, where, someone can struggle and fail many times, but eventually succeed. A lot of times I hear that when I talk to people and they're like, I'm just scared I'm going to fail again. And I'll say, hey, they usually have kids. I'm like, let's say you're talking to your son and your son wants to learn basketball. And he goes, Dad, I've tried to dribble and it keeps hitting my foot and I just can't. And every time I shoot the ball, it doesn't go far enough. Like I quit. What would you tell him? Right? You would say, dude, keep trying, man. Stop. Like just because you failed a bunch of times doesn't mean you're never going to do it again. Like when you watched your kid trying to learn how to walk, how many times did they fall? Did they ever have the attitude or I'm just going to quit and lay on the ground? No, so quit that crap. Quit your quitting attitude.
But you're quitting.
But I get it because, naturally we learn from pain. So like if you touch a hot pan, it burns you. It's like, let's not touch this hot pan again. And similarly, if you're struggling with fitness, you go through the pain and effort of dieting and exercise and you fail and you go back to, so that is a form of pain, right? It's a form of shame and I can understand it, but like, if you look at it logically, if you can get past your own head, you can say to yourself, like, clearly the first failure is saying, well, I'm just going to quit. That is guaranteed failure. So why don't you give yourself a % chance? Just accept in your head that maybe there's a % chance Let's try again. Why not? Would you be more upset at yourself after spending years of trying and effort? Or would you be more upset at yourself at the end of it going, man, I didn't try much and I quit, or I let my fear and my doubts, my personal doubts get in the way and I just stopped trying. You're going to be more proud of yourself if you kept going, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. So probably, not promise, but probably my final question for the listener who wants to improve this week, and especially if they've been kind of a quitter before, what are the first 2 or 3 actions you would tell them to do before they even hire a coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the way I help inspire people to get going is to really take an honest look at themselves. And that's kind of something I do on these consultation calls, is really be honest about how your fitness is impacting your life and also how your life could change if your fitness improves. Because when we talk about those things, it usually motivates people quite a bit to begin the journey again, right? So really start thinking about, man, how is my lack of fitness currently holding me back? Whether it's how I look in the mirror when I take my shirt off, whether it's when I'm huffing air after I go up a flight of stairs, whether it's the risk I'm taking going to work out of shape, whether it's my shortened lifespan, whatever it may be. Compare that to a life that you could imagine where you're in great shape. You feel good, you look good, you perform good, you can take your shirt off and be proud of yourself. You can be safer on the job, you can live longer, you can be a better example to your family. So the idea is tap into your why. And then next I would say is, why don't you start with a small goal? So this is what I love to do with clients, is give them something that's very, like you said, small wins, small, achievable. And what that does is it gets the momentum going and it can help instill some confidence, right? So especially all of you out there who's done the yo-yo dieting, you do one extreme thing after the other and you fail. Why don't you just try something this week, such as, let me just try to meal prep for like 1 meal a day this week. That's my only goal. Let's just try it, right? So like, it seems like a lot of people are all or nothing. You know what I'm saying? So my suggestion is tap into your why and then start with some small goals. Maybe it's just a 10-minute walk per day if you're doing nothing. Start with that. And then you can give yourself some confidence and build from there.
Nice. I love it. So what I heard was visualization, visualize, that end, what you're going to look like with your beach body, and then take small steps. And I love the example of meal prep 1 meal for 1 day. You don't have to do the whole thing. Our oldest daughter is a CrossFit coach, and she meal preps for the entire week. That's what she does. Like on her day just before she goes to work, on her Sunday, she meal preps everything, and it takes hours and hours and hours. And I can totally see how if somebody tried to start with that, you just give up very quickly. What do you mean I got to sit here for 4 hours and prep for the whole week? I can see how that would go away very quickly. So I love the idea of the visualization and something as simple as plan or prep 1 meal. I love it.
Thanks. And one tip too, just to piggyback off you as far as what your daughter's doing, there's also ways of meal prepping if you prefer to get some stuff that's quicker, right? You can get a lot of prepackaged, pre-made things that still have decent ingredients. So there's like also approaches to meal prep that are pretty quick and easy. But like your daughter sounds like she probably makes a lot of stuff fresh, whole foods, chopping things up, right? So everybody can approach fitness in a different way, right? There is no one size fits all approach. So for those of you struggling out there, keep that in mind, is that maybe you just haven't tried the right approaches for yourself.
Nice. Well, brother, this has been an awesome conversation. What I really appreciate about this is this really isn't about vanity. This is about sustainability, readiness, and showing up better for yourself, for your job, for your family. Before we wrap this up, where can our listeners and viewers go to learn more about you and FitResponder and your program?
Yep. Check out fitresponder.com, FITRESPONDER.com, or you can check us out at FitResponder on Instagram. Those would probably be the 2 easiest places to go. You can DM me on Instagram. You can go to our website. You'll find an application button and we can chat with you on a free call, and it's free. We'll talk about your fitness goals, your struggles. We'll talk about how the program works, the different pricing options and whatnot. And we'll see if it's a good fit. No harm, no foul either way. So check us out. And I also suggest Googling FitResponder reviews. You'll see only 5 stars, hundreds and hundreds of reviews.
Yeah, you got great reviews on that site.
I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Yeah. So for my listeners, for my watchers, I'll make sure I put a link to that site down in the show notes and in the comments on YouTube so you can see that. My listeners and my watchers know I got to end with this. Speaking of fitness, I went and saw my doctor the other day and he told me I should do more lunges. And quite honestly, that was a big step forward. So I have to end with the dad joke. It's just a requirement for my podcast, at least for the less, some of the ones that aren't so serious. I appreciate everybody for joining me for this episode of Blue Leader Nation. If this conversation has helped you, please share it with another leader or a first responder who needs to hear it. And remember, leadership is not just about how you lead others, but it's also about how well you lead and take care of yourself. Remember, leadership is a contact sport. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Blue Leader Nation podcast. Our passion is anyone within the thin blue line who want to take it to the next level. We hope you didn't mind the dad jokes, by the way. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.blueleadernation.com.